I'm so excited to be joined tonight by Janet Rich Edwards. She has released a debut novel. It is coming out on December 2nd. This is a historical fiction. It is called Canticle, and I am so lucky. I was, chosen as an ARC reader, me and some of my friends to read this. And let me just say, it was one of the craziest historical fictions, unlike anything I've read recently. So, Janet, thanks for being here with me.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I I follow with envy these reading retreats you do. So
Oh, they are a lot of fun. And this book is unlike anything that a lot of people are reading nowadays. So when I saw it come across, I think it was on Instagram, I was like, we have to get our hands on this book. And it's not something that I typically read. I know it's not something that a lot of my girlfriends usually read. So I'm super excited to get it. And before we get into the book, let's talk about the cover because it is the most beautiful cover I've ever seen in my entire life.
it's out.
We were just talking about how authors have hardly any say in the design. So, do you have a little bit of background behind the cover? I mean, it's stunning.
No, only that I feel so lucky. Apparently there were two versions of it and I never even was allowed to see the other version. So
Of
I
course
didn't
not.
really have approval. But they had put a ring, a gold ring on Elise's finger, and that cannot be in the story. So they agreed to
No,
take that out. But aside from that, I'm just I love this cover. I feel
it
really
is. It's so beautiful and it's not sterile or boring like a lot of covers you see nowadays, especially for historical fictions. I mean, it is just so beautiful. And that's like what drew me to it because I saw the cover come across social media and I was like, I don't know what that book is, but I need to read it just because it's so pretty. So, tell me a little bit about the book, what inspired, just a quick synopsis, and then we'll get into some personal questions and then really deep dive the book.
Absolutely. So Canticle is set in Bruges in the year 1299, and I picked that moment because it's like arguably the first women's movement in history. And our protagonist is Elise, a headstrong young woman who is prone to mystical visions.
Very young woman.
Very young woman. She's 17. Yeah, and we meet her on the eve of a marriage that she doesn't want. And she flees to join what she thinks is going to be these radical Franciscan friars, men who are preachers, around the town of Bruges. She would be their first woman. So, of course, she's totally naive. She doesn't realize she's not going to have a place to live. So they put her with the Beguines, which you'll hear more about, but is this sort of radical commune, if you will, of women. When Elise begins to perform what might be miracles, the town goes crazy and it attracts the attention of an ambitious bishop. And before you know it, they're all being put to a test of their courage and their faith. And it's ultimately a story about sisterhood, a lot in there about literacy, and about doubt and belief, all of it.
Yeah, it's you go into this story. When I started it, I was like, is this going to be a really religious book? But it's not. It's about sisterhood and like obstacles that these young women, oh, they're not all young, but these women are facing. And it's funny that you mentioned literacy because I shouldn't say my favorite part, but I loved the very brief plot line of her and the boy like kind of learning from each other in the very beginning. It was so sweet. And then she's like, "You're leaving me?"
I know, I
I
know.
was like, me too. I want more of him, but obviously he had to go. So,
You had to go for the sake of the story.
exactly.
Somebody else
Well,
had an alternate.
exactly. Well, before first and foremost, I mean, the thought, I can't wait to get actually into the book and like what inspired you to write it because like I said earlier, it is just unlike any historical fiction that I've ever read or read recently. So, I'm super excited to talk about it, but before we get into the book, a little bit about you. So, my first not serious question is that you have two cats. I have a cat you just saw. She's right here. She's my kitten. So, what are your two cats' names?
They are two tabbies. They're gorgeous.
Oh,
Their names are Max, because my daughter wanted him to be named Max, and Iggy's, who's named after our favorite bakery.
amazing.
They're pretty
And
cuties.
are they both babies or?
But they're babies at heart.
Yeah.
They're still tumbling around. They're about 4 years old now.
Oh my goodness. We have like a 4-year old, and this one is not even one yet, but she's bigger than him and is a piece of work, this little calico. So I told Janet before we started recording that the cat will be like walking across the in the background across the
I
screen.
wish
So
Biggs and Max would show up, but yeah, I think
go,
I'm still
where are
interested
they?
in cats.
When I read that, I was like, I have to bring in the cats somehow. So my other personal question was, you were slash are a professor at Harvard. Are you still there? And how does having or how did having a full-time job work with trying to write your very first novel? I mean, this is your first debut novel from what I know. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And I was just blown away at the writing and the skill and like the storytelling. I was like, there's no way this is her first novel. So how did you have time to do that?
You're very kind. Yeah, I'm an epidemiologist. I'm still at Harvard, and um, I started sneaking in writing on the side. At first, I didn't tell anybody because I thought
Every, I think
I was
every
gonna.
writer does that. They're like, I'll
You
just
think so?
write a
Yeah,
sentence over.
it's probably true because it's a little embarrassing, you know. Like everybody wants to write a novel, but um, after a little while, I did tell them they were wonderful about it. And I took some. I work sort of part time. I work kind of 3.5 days a week just to make time for the writing at this point. But it's sort of like a yin yang thing for me. Like I'm pretty social and I love my day job and my colleagues and my students, but there's a part of me that always just wants to curl up with a book. And it's that part that like wants to tunnel into my imagination and be able to write.
Oh,
It's hard
definitely.
for me to balance.
Yeah. Did you ever consider writing under a pen name or like keeping it completely separate? Or are you? I didn't.
Oh no, no, no! This is my real name.
Like, this is
No,
my name.
that
I
didn't
did.
occur to me.
I did an interview with an author one time, and about halfway through, she goes, "That's this isn't my real name," and I was like, "I had no idea." So, did you consider doing that because you do have a full-time job?
No, no, I didn't. I kind of want to get credit for it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna do it.
definitely. Well, I love it. And you're so right when you say everybody wants to write a novel and it takes a certain type of person to become an author. And I mean, you're working with a great team and I assume that they've been such a great help to you. I see what they're doing
Oh,
on
they're
the marketing side and the pub side. So a shout out to them as well because they're doing a great job and hopefully they've been a big help for you.
they've been an enormous help. It's great to have people who will hold your hand as a
Yep.
debut author through every bit of the process, and they've just done a crazy good job with all the
Yeah.
publicity too. Yeah, I'm really grateful to them.
What do you think the hardest part, and this wasn't a question, but what do you think like the hardest part of it being your first debut, like working with a publishing team? Do you have anything that's like stuck out that you maybe didn't anticipate?
You know, they've been really good about letting me know what's coming. I think it's just this, I think I have a little bit of a love-hate thing with the attention and the publicity. You know, it's like part of me like dreads it before I like go on stage, but there's another part of me that once I'm on there, I just like eat it up. So,
Yeah, and you're talking about something that you're passionate about, and so it's so fun. It's fun as a reader to go to like book signings and meet authors because we get to see how passionate you all are, and things like this. It's so fun getting to just talk to you about what you enjoy doing. So with that, let's get into the actual Canticle book questions. What was a little bit of like the inspiration behind the book? I know I've said it 1,000 times, but it seriously, I can't even describe the book because it's unlike anything I've ever read. And I did write a little summary, but yours was way better. And it's just a timepiece unlike anything new day that we see. So what was the inspiration?
yeah, well, from the time I was a young woman, I was actually in the Peace Corps in West Africa in my 20s, and there was a famine, and I was, a nutritionist, although being a nutritionist working with not much food isn't a whole lot of fun. And my mother sent me, things were grim, and my mom sent me this duffel bag full of books. And one of them was actually this sort of like account of these medieval women mystics. These were these women who um, in the middle of war, plague, drought, famine, and against a church that was not only pretty corrupt, but really hell bent on punishment, were like claiming these divine showings, and everything was about love, all love, nothing but love. It was so cool, and I began to get curious about their lives. And in doing so, that's when I bumped into the Beguines, because several of the mystics were Beguines. And these were women who, like, in the Middle Ages, you had two choices, and only two choices as a woman. You either got married or you became a nun. Right? And to become a nun, you needed a serious dowry. It wasn't that simple. So women began to band together to form their own self-sufficient communities, and they were called beguines. And these are just sort of amazing women, particularly because they took the radical step of refusing to be under the rule of the church. And so, the chance to take a mystic, Elise is, a mystic, and this group of women, the Beguines, and put them together was really what got it all going for me.
I love that. And of course, I didn't know anything about this. So I did like such a deep dive after. I should have done it before reading, but like while I was reading it, I had like my phone on the dictionary next to it, just looking words up and like trying to do as much research while reading it. But then at times I was like, I don't even need to be doing this because, again, like you do such a great job of the storytelling. I was like understanding it from the context clues and all of that. So it was so interesting to learn about this world that I would argue most people nowadays have no idea about.
And I didn't when I started. Like, I knew nothing about the 13th century. Like, you get novels set in the Tudor area, right? Henry VIII and stuff like that, which is, 200 or 300 years later. But like nothing from this period. So I had so much to learn. Everything from, like, is there glass in the windows? How do you light a fire? All the daily stuff, and plus the politics and the
Oh,
church.
I
Um,
can't even imagine. And you can really tell like the amount of research you put in to write this book. I truly felt like it didn't feel fiction. I was like, well, this is true. All of this is true. It's so factual because the research behind it, like you could really see that in your writing.
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep too much detail out of there because, like, I'm an academic at heart too, and so research, I just get lost down rabbit holes, and it's like catnip to me, all the like interesting little facts. But story has to come first. So,
Of course.
yeah.
Well, storyline. So Elise is this young woman. I keep saying Elise. This
Elise, got it, you got it,
Elise.
Elise. Yeah, I had to retrain myself. We were talking about this earlier. Yeah.
And I even went at one point and like listened to, because I love audiobooks. And so of course I go to Spotify and I'm like, is the audiobook going to come out on December 2nd? And it was like, oh, listen to, a clip of it. And I was like, how did they say her name?
Yeah.
But she's this young woman. I mean, at the beginning of the book, she's 13, I believe.
Yeah.
13 or 14. We see her mainly around like 16, 17. And of course, she's young, she's naive, but she knows what she wants. And she is so driven and really knows like what her purpose in life is. And she sees the good in people. And it is just like so refreshing and magical to see a female main character like this. So, what was like your goal or your thought behind her? Was there like, did you read about someone real that kind of inspired her, or tell me about her?
Well, there was a historical character, but so much is unknown about that character that, like, I had to come up with Elisa's character. Um, and I loved her because she is so young that she's simultaneously, it allows me to give her the complexity of both being really naive and really ambitious, right? So she's profoundly curious and she really wants to get to know God, like really get to know God. She wants like intimacy with God. So she's really got this kind of philosopher soul, and wants to understand this beautiful, devastating world we live in. Um, and for her, her character arc is about her coming to understand it's not all about her.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And things aren't always going to go the way she plans. Because
exactly.
I feel like she has this idea for what she wants and then is like, oh, nope, here's a change. Oh, nope, here's a change. You got to pivot and make it work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Including that really big one in the middle, middle of the novel. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Was there any off question script, but were there any like big parts of the book without giving away spoilers? Were there any big parts that your editors were like, we got to take that out, or something that you
Oh,
really wanted to put in?
oh no, it's worse than that. It's much, much worse than that. My editor loved the story, except for two-thirds of the way through the book. Elise makes a really key decision. It's like the pivotal moment of the book.
Hmm.
The editor goes like, I don't think she would do that. I just don't
Oh,
believe it. I was like, what do you mean? You know, she's like, no, you need to rewrite the ending. Try it this way. And at first I was really resistant.
yep.
And then I tried it. And I write, the way I try something new is I scroll what if at the top of a paper. And I just make myself write and write and write and brainstorm. And
Wow.
she was right. It was better.
Oh.
It was better. But then, of course, I had to go back to the beginning, to make the story lead up to that point. Um,
Oh my gosh. And
and
it's
she was,
funny, like, I feel like that always happens, and you're like, no, I'm not going to change it. And then you change it, and
totally.
you're like, oh man, maybe it was better.
Yeah.
Wow. And how was like the editing process? Because obviously you took a lot of time to do research to write this story and make it like historically accurate as well. So do you think that that like played a part in the editing process?
It did and it didn't. You know, I'm one of those writers who I can't move on until a detail is correct, or the sentence, I really, really love it. And so I really had all the history in there at the point I was working with the editor. And and so it wasn't so much revising the history itself, but really just getting the story right. Really getting the story and the character. And honestly bringing Finn back in, that young love of hers. He
I
had to come
loved
back in.
him.
I dropped him like a hot potato at the beginning, but
I know.
he needs to come back in.
Thank goodness, because I seriously was like, it's 4 pages in, not really, but so, and I was like, where did he go? And then I was like, well, maybe Finn will get his own story. That's where my head went.
You sound like my editor.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you do.
I, I love that. Now, again, without spoilers,
Mm,
do you have a favorite part of the book, a favorite plot line or plot hole, plot twist? Was there
yeah.
something that you're obsessed with?
Yeah. Yeah. There are 2 points. One is, again, I don't want to give it away, and this would be such a big spoiler, but is halfway through so the bishop is her nemesis, and he sets her up for a trial of her, ability to do miracles, which she has no control over, right? And there's a total bottom drops out of it moment when she realized what he's done. That I love, but I also love. We also have this character Marta, who is the maid to the Beguines, who learns to read and write, and literacy is a really important part of this book. And when Marta, who's always been something of a truth teller, like when she speaks, you should listen, but she doesn't say much. But once she finally learns to read and write, man, watch out. She,
I
yeah,
love that. There was one line in maybe like around page 100, maybe a third of the way, and there was a line about her learning to read, and it was something that like you would say to a child, maybe. It was, I can't remember the exact line. I should have written it down, but it was something like, how are you gonna like judge her for learning to read when most women can't, or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that the way you wrote it, it was so profound, and I loved it. It was like the very first time that Elise heard her reading, and it was so beautiful the way you wrote it. I was like, man, that is such a special moment.
yeah. Marta's learning to read was just a total delight to me. She's somebody who, even at the end of the book, under great stress, is like murmuring the alphabet under her breath. That's her way of praying.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so speaking about the end of the book, how do you want the readers to feel when they are done with this book? What are like the main themes you want them to take away? Do you think people will be surprised by the ending? I know that's a lot of questions wrapped into one, but what are your thoughts on, what people should feel at the end of this book?
Yes. So there are really sort of 3 takeaways, I think. There are 3 themes that I think about. One is the value of sisterhood. We can't do any of this alone. And I think the beginnings have a lot to teach us about that. And the second one is this idea of literacy. There's a whole subplot about illegal translation of the Bible. And when the women learn to read and write, they gain a power in being able to understand it, but also retell it in their own way.
I loved that. It was one of my favorite parts was when they catch wind that the women are riding and they're like, "Oh no, the women can
Women
can
are writing. Yeah.
what are we gonna do? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a like pivotal moment in history.
It kind of was, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the other thing I love about that era. And then I think the last thing, and maybe the most important one, is that even though Canticle's set in this time and place when the church was all powerful and religion was sort of all important, as you pointed out, Canticle's not a religious book, but it does honor the human search for the sacred all around us. You know, I feel like we can live our busy lives and sort of miss it, but like the wonder and the joy are like right there, just sort of at our fingertips, if we just remember to look.
Wow, I love that. See, the way you speak is the way you write. I mean, it's so beautiful, and I think that a lot of people hopefully get this out of the book because it can be, and I fear that some of my friends are going to start this book and be like, "Oh, it's a really religious book." And what you say about sisterhood and especially literacy too, but these books about sisterhood in like a historical setting, I think girls and women in today's age are going to just eat this book up.
Well, it gives me hope, like to see groups of women who like got through hard times, together. It kind of makes you feel like, yeah, well, maybe we could do it too.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, this is off subject kind of from the ending, but how'd you come up with the name Canticle? I mean, I understand how, but was there another name that you were toying with, or did you always know this is what it was going to be?
I always knew it was going to be this, and my fear in selling the novel was that I wouldn't be allowed to use it. I remember going to my very first event, and it was an audience of probably about 50 people, and I said, "Okay, raise your hand if you know what Canticle is." And like two people kind of tentatively raised their hands. So I always introduce it that Canticle is means sort of a song of praise. And like you think of the Canticle of Canticles as the Song of Songs, also known as the Song of Solomon, which is read at a lot of weddings. It's the most incredibly erotic piece of scripture you'll find. And it's kind of threaded through the book, the themes of the Canticle. So that's why.
Well, I love that. And I love that you didn't have any other, not any other ideas, but you didn't want to change it. Like, this is the name. We are sticking to it. I love that. Thank you so much for getting on here and, talking to me about the book. And my other question was, do you think readers will be surprised by the ending?
Yes, I, I think they will. So I left the ending ambiguous on purpose a little bit. You can read it two ways, and that's kind of part of, one of the themes of the story. It's what you bring to it is what you get out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Do you
hopefully people can
have,
make a choice.
yeah, do you have any other pieces of literacy in the works, or is anyone getting a second story or a side story that you can share with me?
So I've written about the medieval times for long enough that part of me wants to really write a modern day character,
Ooh.
but she's going to be a medieval historian. So
Now, have you read, humble plug to Jodi Picoult, have you read her most recent,
that's so funny. This is not a plant. I just read it. And you know why I read it? I read it because it's a
yes,
dual plot line. And that's
yes.
what I want to do with this one.
Okay, that was the first thing my head went to was if anyone hasn't read by any other name, it's like modern day Shakespeare, her an ancestor going back and forth with Shakespeare. I read it. I went to her book signing for this event. She's been one of my favorite authors. And I'm not just saying this, Janet. The whole time I was reading Canticle, that's what I was wanting out of the Shakespearean part of By Any Other Name. Like I was just like so blown away at your writing, and I love Jodi, but I was like, man, I can read this entire novel and it's such a timepiece. And I was like, I don't even need the modern portion of this book. Of course, it would be great for a second book, but it was just so interesting having the whole book be a timepiece. So I loved it.
Well, thank you. That's high praise. And I'm a big fan of Jodi Picoult's too.
Of course, everyone is, and she's like that one specifically. Wasn't my favorite of hers just because I couldn't really connect to the Shakespearean time of it, But I was like comparing a lot of y'all's writings to each other. And again, it was just so fascinating because that was the first thing I thought. Because someone asked me if Canticle was a series. And in my head, I was like, it's not. But a modern, like it, the connection there would be amazing. So I'll just leave it at that. And hopefully we see that in the future.
I hope so too. Thank you, Michelle. This was really it's so fun to talk with you. And
Oh, well, thank you. It's so great to meet you. And we've kind of been planning this for a couple months now. So I'm glad it worked out and we got to chat. And so for anyone watching, there actually is a Goodreads giveaway going on for this book. I believe it's a paperback. Correct me if I'm wrong.
no, it's hard copy.
Pardon?
It's hard copy.
Amazing. So it's going on, I believe, until the end of the month. There's maybe like 6 or 7 days left on it. So go enter that giveaway. And of course, go follow Janet. Her tag, I will put it below, but it is J.R. Edwards author. Canticle comes out on December 2nd. So it would be a great read for yourself. It would be a great Christmas or holiday gift for anyone in your family that likes to read, likes historical fiction or novels. So keep that in mind. And Janet, thank you so much again for joining me. This has been such a pleasure to get to know you and Elise and the story. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. This was a lot of fun.